and sit down.
Welcome to Stu and the Nunn, an online radio show and podcast focused on national security, policy, politics, and selfless service. We're here to give you an honest opinion, a different perspective, and hopefully a few laughs. We do this by not only interviewing guests, but also sharing our own perspectives and asking you, the listener, to interact with us on the show chat room, via our Facebook page, and on Twitter. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Stu and the Nunn. Welcome here on this March 19th. We are rocking it. What's up, Toby, my brother, down south? I see you quarantined in the office.
Hey, I'm trying to get the socials going right now, and I was having a little hiccup, but we got it. I am in the southern. I'm actually not quarantined. I'm self-quarantining just for this episode, and then I'm gonna freely drive back to my house, but
nice.
I think that's only for another day that I'm going to be allowed to do that.
You think they're going to stop you from even coming into your office?
No? I might self-police myself.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, I'll have to Google that and see what that means. Hey, there are some stuff going on. I'm having problems with the Facebook. I can see we're streaming on my watch party, but it actually looks like Facebook is down. I mean, they've attacked us a lot of ways. Maybe people are just quarantined at home and everyone's trying to tune into us right now, and it's overloading Zuckerberg servers. I don't know. But
I think I'm back up, so that's what I think we're good to go.
Man,
but anyway, no,
they come after us all the time.
Whatever. Facebook can't hold me down.
Mm-mm.
Ain't nobody gonna cut my stride. Facebook gonna hold me down. Oh no!
Wow,
I've got to keep on broadcasting.
Look at that!
Yeah.
There we go. Taco's got nothing on you.
From the back of my head, it came all the way through the frontal lobes, came down a nose that's not as big as David Bellavia's, and out my mouth.
Wow!
No.
Nice.
Tonight's goal, the over/under. If you're playing the Stu and the Nunn drinking game tonight, is how many times we can make nasal or nose references.
I wonder how many. Let me start right now with this fine Yingling from the state of Pennsylvania, which I think is going into state quarantine tomorrow, so I had to crack one open for them tonight.
In honor
of all them, so I hope they got their Yingling along with their toilet paper. So anyways, yes, we are March 19th. I think we are depends on where you live. I want to say this is like day 4 of the quarantine. Would that be a safe thing? I mean, New York, we kind of started it early because Cuomo always likes to get all the press, but I would say we are. I'd say we are in it. So day 4 of the quarantine, we're not losing our minds. You are Troy here from the Northern Studio. May notice a different view. You guys scored me a stand-up desk, which I really like, and I'm able to get my groove on and dance when you sing. And it's a nice balmy 51 degrees up here right now, Toby. It almost feels like Texas in December. But so here we are.
Yeah. The Jessica, be proud of that stand-up desk. A lot of people are rocking it. People I appreciate, admire. And I guess you are now entering into the fold of cool people.
I don't know about that. I used one when I was in Texas a couple weeks ago when I was down there with you. We have them in our office, and I found myself standing all day, and I actually enjoyed it. Found it better than sitting down, and now that my gym closed after I got in there one more time on Monday, I'm now to my elliptical, my bands, and just standing up to try to stay in shape. So it actually came in right at the right time. So anyways, notice I'm also sporting a big shout out to the Mesquite Creek Outfitters. Got my hat on because the boys are doing some great on the socials, but they're being impacted like many businesses during this.
So let's give them a shout out real fast because Mesquite Creek Outfitters, they are the living room of Georgetown. They are more than just an apparel store. They are the gathering place. They're the heartbeat of our community.
Yep.
And they're definitely being impacted. They're definitely having to make some hard choices and dealing with some tough things right now. But they're doing it with class. They're doing it with style, and they're trying to find ways to not just help themselves, but help everyone around them and help all the businesses around them. And I'm proud that they're my partners. I'm proud that they're my friends and my brothers. And that's what we have to do. So big shout out to them. Shout out to our other sponsor, our new flagship sponsor, number one sponsor, Kermode Outdoor Development Group. Number one in our hearts.
Make sure you like them on Facebook. Like them on Facebook. Make sure after you like Stu and the Nunn.
Follow Kermode Outdoors on the IG for great upcoming content. Again, that's a business that also hit hard by this virus but nothing's going to keep them down. Like the Kermode Bear, they will thrive. They are the spirit of the people. But no, these are interesting times. But you and I could talk for hours. But we're missing the tripod of the third leg. We're missing part of the three-headed monster.
He's our third leg. Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, no, I'm not sure which leg he is, but he's the third one.
He's been a guest host. He's been a guest host more on this show than anybody else, I think. So it's a proper.
No, he is the Alec Baldwin of the Stu and the Nunn show.
Want to welcome onto the show.
Also a son of New York.
Yes.
But without further ado, let us bring out the author of House to House, the speaker of one of the greatest speeches ever delivered. That's right. While everyone in America right now is facing the opportunity to raise their own kids, he's the man that promised America's enemies that they will not get the opportunity to raise theirs. He is the Medal of Honor recipient, the only living Medal of Honor recipient from the Iraq War, Operation Iraqi Freedom, none other than the owner of the greatest nose in America, David Bellavia.
Let me grab my mic. David Bellavia. There we go. I had to do my announcer mic.
Hey, who did your theme music? Al Qaeda? That is horrible. Do you know what's crazy about ISIS? They got all the audio visual talent in the Mujahideen. They all went to ISIS because Al Qaeda, they were really struggling with their visual guys. Their audio, the stuff that they would dub in was just really nasty. Their music was bad. ISIS got their act together. But anyway, hey, it's great to be on the show. Thanks.
Yeah, so awkward. Hunter, Troy's son, made that music.
I wasn't going to say. I was going to drop that one on later.
No, I'm talking about the music, not the theme music. The music that played before the theme music was like this disco.
Yeah, the bumper music.
Yeah, man, that's spacey stuff out there.
Yeah, that's Hunter did that on his iPad. He totally produced it.
Wow.
Yeah. So I'll let him know you're a fan. I'll make sure he signs a CD for you.
Yeah, my bad.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. I love Hunter though. He's super awesome.
Yeah. Now I know, Dave, it's not like you to ever say anything awkward or off-putting to somebody.
No, it sounded. I'm just saying. It's not that it's a bad song. It just sounded like it should be in a beheading video. That's all I'm saying.
No, and so I just want to caveat something real fast that Dave is absolutely correct. He is absolutely correct that in terms of the Mujahideen and the great jihad, ISIS did have the best AV team. Their video production was unparalleled. It was great. Their recruiting videos, were taken right out of our video game, Nature's doing the first person shooters and stuff. They're really good. The guys that were being held at gunpoint trying to film two old men in caves, they just couldn't put it out. The old VCDs just didn't have the quality. And so, ISIS will go down as the best terrorist video makers of this century.
They've got it on.
You know what it reminds me of? In the Medal of Honor Society right now, the vast majority of recipients are over the age of 70, right? Mm-hmm. There's a lot of old men in this collection of living recipients, and every time they're asked to pick out like the best looking tuxedo for everyone to wear at a convention. The old men like pick like white tuxedo tops and black pants, like we're all Captain Stubing on the Love Boat, right? And sometimes when you get like 70-year-old people in a room, they just don't know what's hip and they don't know what's happening. And Al Qaeda was being run, you know, by folks that just weren't understanding what the new draw was to. There was Mujahideen was losing romance. It wasn't fun to live in a cave and get shot at, you know. And ISIS tried to make it kinetic and cool and go out there and do something. Yep. Take your anger and be violent, and it was very effective. They had tons of recruits, and then they learned too how romantic it is to go head to head with the United States military.
So tonight we're announcing Dave's new business venture, Terrorist Public Relations and Advertising Incorporated. If you have a need to
I'm just pointing out the difference.
If you have a need to get that beheading video across.
Listen, we've had this conversation a million times. You know, Troy and I, we've known each other for years, and Toby, you as well. And we've been talking about a plethora of things. I have to tell you, though, that there's something happening in America today where gun aficionados, gun nuts, as they used to be called, I think the people that did not understand why people have guns or stockpiled ammunition, all of this was kind of like a really bad sci-fi movie with Eric Roberts. It was never like, there's no reality to it. And now we're starting to see a little bit of reality. And I'm starting to see a lot of my left-wing friends that are kind of like, I get it now. I get it. I understand it. I didn't understand it before. I understand it now.
Is that because
you invoked Eric Roberts?
Yeah,
dude, that's a strong move. That's a strong move, Dave.
So
you always know Eric Roberts is in the movie because the credit sequence is like 1,000 miles an hour. And it's like the crew of the movie doesn't want recognition for the movie. They're just like, please just roll it as fast as you can. It never happened.
It like slows down for like Best Boy Grip and like Top Gaffer, and then it like speeds back up.
And then it just speeds back up to all the people that are just like, I'd rather not be associated with this. That's cool.
Yeah. So you hit on a good topic.
Obviously, there's
no shortage of topics to hit on tonight. I'm assuming you're really referencing this whole recent virus and quarantine, which we're seeing reports from all over the country where gun shops are being sucked dry almost as fast as toilet paper, ammo, guns. They're buying everything from pink 22 Savage child guns to 50 cal Barretts to somehow think they're gonna protect their home or something like that. I'm assuming that's what you're referring to. Is your friends that maybe are on the left or non-gun fan side, are they reaching out to you like asking if you got something to sell them or what?
No. I just think that there was. I don't think we've had in modern history a time where there was a potential for neighbors that are neighbors forced to depend on each other.
Right.
America has always been the country of the great frontier. I mean, one of the reasons why we were never a socialist country is because we had the West. While all these other European countries industrialized, they built their cities up. And so you had to learn to get along with your neighbors. You had to be quiet. You had to submit. You had to, show respect because you were constantly living in a communal environment, and it was a multi-generational environment. And in America, we're like, we're getting on a horse. We're building a ranch. Like,
right.
come get me. I'm in Idaho. You're not going to touch me. That was the mentality here. And today we're now having to look across and say, we got to help each other out because this thing is pretty serious.
Well, I think it's you highlight something interesting. We see that on a micro scale in communities when a storm happens or, something happens like that. Like I'm sure the people in Nashville are still doing that. And we see that. But what you've highlighted is even 9/11 was a major impact on this country. And for maybe a few days, we saw that across the country in areas that were directly affected in New York and DC, probably more so. But across the country, it was a few days as the planes were not in the skies. Everyone kind of, looked out for each other. But I think what you kind of highlighted is now nationwide, if not globally, but we'll just focus on nationwide. We're seeing that everywhere, right? It is truly, and it's not just a day or two, right? We're probably going to be lucky if it's only a month or two, where people are going to have.
Well, listen, I think that I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I think so. I want to rewind a little bit, because one of the things that was so impactful about 9/11 was everyone knew at that moment life as we knew it had changed. And whether you were not directly affected by it, you witnessed it in some capacity, and you knew that moving forward, everything would be different. This event that we're experiencing right now is the very same. Now, we are not being attacked by an enemy. We're facing a crisis as a nation. But I think everyone, minus the spring breakers that are still partying on beaches, understand that life as we know it has changed moving forward. And more people will be directly affected by this event than were ever affected by 9/11. And, to think anything less than that is just naivety and, just sheer, ignorance.
Yeah.
But no, like, we will come together. We will be stronger leaving this event than we were leaving 9/11, I think. But, I've read too many Michael J. Fox books, because I'm the eternal optimist over here. But I think there definitely are similarities between the two events. And I think that, what we witnessed then, we will witness again, except we will witness a higher, greater intensity of it because of the direct effect that it's having. It's not just happening in 3 different locations in America. It's happening in every county, in every town, to include West Virginia that had slipped, under the radar for a minute. So,
what you got?
Sorry, Dave.
The way you just described ska music in the 90s, by the way. That's exactly how that infected America as well.
You just made
slowly by slowly.
You just made something.
Everyone was singing.
You can't say that when Toby's drinking. Toby was drinking it shot out of his nose on camera. It was great.
Everyone started singing Ruby Soho one day. I woke up. I was like, "What the hell happened to my country?" But
let's not disrespect Mighty Boss Stones or Gwen Stefani. They're American treasures. Right. Dave. American treasures.
They are American treasures. Here's the thing. One of the things this thing's going to end with, and again, China must be sanctioned with the stiffest penalties any country has ever faced. More than Iran, more than North Korea. This is 100% just global partners that just simply don't care. There's no reason whatsoever. They knew they were messing around with this a year ago. And we still don't have numbers as to how many are dead. We have no idea what we were even working with until our own scientists and experts started playing with it themselves. But, when you look at older populations, multi-generational populations like in Europe and Italy, 3,000 dead, they have more dead now than China. Do you believe that? I don't believe that. I think China's numbers are staggering. And I think they've been happening for a very long time. And it's really, it shows you exactly what kind of friend and ally you have with communist China. They're never going to help us. They're always going to be in our way. And honestly, this disease is, I think, just an example of just really poor global partnership.
Well, and it's great that you mentioned that, Dave, because something that is going to get tacked along to this, and a benefit. And what's her name? Greta Thunberg. And her movement are going to kind of jump onto this train, is because now with this and their irresponsibility with this, they're going to be able to point out all these other things that, people are complaining about, world pollution in the ocean and, global warming and climate change and all that stuff. It's like the greatest, perpetrators of this is not the United States. It's our global partners. And, now this hopefully will put the green light back up, or the drinking light on, as we used to say, to start, correcting some of these bad behaviors. And by correcting them, I mean by holding them accountable and it not being racist to say yo, China, you suck.
What happens when you don't have a free media? you don't have the opportunity to push your propaganda. If there is a country that ISIS wants to kill more than any other country, it's the way the Chinese treat Muslims. The Chinese will never have a mujahideen problem in China because they don't allow Muslims to worship freely. They don't allow Muslims to assemble. They systematically target them. They take them out. They separate them, and they send them to camps as well. But yet, you'll never see Al Qaeda and ISIS talk about why they want to take out China, because that story will never get to the world.
No, and
there is no opportunity.
That's actually how they got through the virus. That's how they got the factories up and going. They pulled the Muslims out of those camps to get the factories back going so that they could continue to strive. But no, you're absolutely right. Go ahead, Troy.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, you hit on something earlier. They said it started in December, and then we found out a week ago that, now we have evidence that they knew about it in November. And like you said, we haven't heard, if it started before that, how long it's been going on. We also haven't heard, obviously, numbers from North Korea. We haven't heard, I was just trying to hit the John Hopkins side. I've been keeping an eye on it. What the numbers are coming out of Russia. What I have seen out of Russia, it looks exceedingly low for as big a country, as poor of infrastructure that Russia has. I think, and they have a lot of cross-pollination with China. I think that's a lot worse than they're saying.
Not only does Russia not have coronavirus, they don't have gay people either.
Oh, that's true. They get
openly.
It's amazing. Yeah, no, it's an amazing thing what the Russians. Again, these communist public relations people are the easiest folks to figure out ever. I mean, we cracked this nut in the 40s. They lead with outrageous stats that aren't backed by anything. And then when there's any heat on them, the only time the real discussion came that this could be man-made or this was factory created somehow in a lab was when China came out and said, America built this in a military lab. And everyone's like, wait a minute, China built this in a military lab. That's what they do. They always put out what they've done, and they accuse you of doing it. Yeah. It's the laziest propaganda in the world. It's every communist does it. But you know what's amazing to me? What's amazing to me about this entire Corona thing is how the NFL simply doesn't care. And they're like, free agency, we gotcha. If the apocalypse was occurring, we would still have a draft. Like, hey, the world's going to end on Tuesday. A meteor is about to hit us. But, hey, the Bills select with the 22nd draft pick overall. Yeah. They just simply don't care.
Yeah, well, they I guess they're thinking their summer camps are far enough away, and they can. It's not going to affect them, which is very, very ignorant to think that this is not. I mean, I don't know what the proportion. I don't know if anyone even has figured it out. I'm sure there's some mathematicians that are making guesses. I would imagine every day we're going through what has pretty much started since this last weekend. It has to have. It's not a 1-for-1. I imagine there's got to be weeks, if not a month, of recovery time for every day that we're pretty much going through this. I mean, God forbid, the market has been. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm saying you could make the argument that if you had the flu 4 months ago, that you may have had coronavirus and beat it.
You may have. You don't know, right? We weren't testing.
You don't know. I mean, right. There's no way that we've only had this in our backyard for 5 weeks. There's just no way. I mean, this thing has been around for a very long time. And we're finding out West Virginia didn't have any cases. No, West Virginia didn't have any testing kits. Now that they have testing kits, you're going to see numbers that are absolutely going to stagger you, and they shouldn't really bother you because, again, we still have that mortality rate. We still know who it affects the most. But, yeah, those numbers are going to go through the roof because people are carrying it or have been infected with it. It doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to lose them.
Right.
Yeah, and that's, the numbers game is crucial, right? So a lot of people are panicking right now, and and I definitely believe that they should be concerned because there is potential, to continue to contaminate other people, et cetera. But you don't know how many people have it until you start testing. West Virginia is a great, scenario. Texas, all these, states. I live in Texas, so I'm going to use it as an example. Like, of course, our numbers are going to skyrocket in the next week to 2 weeks because, like, now we're testing people. Now we're going to find out who actually has it. And you know, being testing positive and dying from it are two different things. Testing positive for it and needing to be like hospitalized are two different things. But no, like the numbers game aspect of it is ridiculous. But when we say that this is unprecedented, we have to be careful because like we actually don't have data to support the fact that it's unprecedented because we haven't been tested. Now we know that it exists. Now we're going through these things, and I think everyone's reacting, responsibly. I think everyone's reacting well. I don't think people are like overreacting, minus the people that are buying, like 38 rolls of toilet paper, insinuating that they're going to take 262 shits a day. But
well, I think
leadership-wise,
I think that's
reacting well and managing it relatively well. We're just not used. I mean, when I say we, I mean the royal we, the general public are just not used to the government controlling certain things. I bet you go to any like the dependopotamus out there, and they'll tell you like, oh, welcome to my pain. Like, I'm used to the military or the government controlling everything I do, to include when I can take vacations, where I can take vacations, and having to ask permission to do that stuff. Only being able to buy what's available in the commissary, and but we don't have supply chain issues. We don't have that stuff. What we have is like now we're just letting the rest of the general public kind of understand what everyone else in the world, including like the small percentage of military folks and government contractors, have kind of experienced for a period of time.
Dave,
I think it's important also. I think it's important also to realize how the Western world has fought viruses for the last 30 years. We don't defeat these things. We fight viruses like the French fight wars. We avoid them until hopefully they go away on their own. But I mean, like with Ebola, it was about containment. Get Ebola out of the mass population. It goes away on its own. We are not doing that. We're in a position right now where we don't even know how bad the problem is. And again, we don't know. We didn't have that information because our global partners were too busy covering this up and trying to keep their economy going. Which, by the way, one of the things that we've always seen with communism, especially in the late '80s, is that there always reaches a tipping point. And these sometimes it's too much for these regimes to hold on. And when you look at Xi and you look at China, their economy is suffering. Their military is, for the first time, they're spending money on the military, and they're trying to use their military in a way that their military is not really designed to be used. It's never been, the fact that they have a carrier is great, but what are they doing with it? I mean, how many places can you take that one carrier? Right. And what kind of readiness is that crew of that one carrier that's been to 5,000 stops a year?
Yeah.
And so now this is enough to topple Z. It's enough to topple the regime, and it's enough to be as to me. Yeah. It could change. It could bring democracy to China.
Well, here's one thing I want to highlight. I want to take it back.
That's a strong statement. But there's some strength to it.
I want to take this back one other step to something you said earlier, Dave. You talked about how we need to sanction China like we've never done before. I agree. However, when I look at things like China, 95% of our antibiotics come out of China. I'm not even talking about the plastic trinkets and all that stuff. When I talk about the raw materials for our medicines and all that stuff, they literally have us by the short hairs. And whenever they wanted to squeeze, they could. If anything comes out of this, I hope, and we all know being in the military, hope is not a method, but I hope that our country will waken up and realize that maybe offshoring all the development and production and manufacturing we have done mostly to China than anywhere else is maybe, it's okay for some things, but it should not be carte blanche for anything. So just like we have certain laws and rules that certain things have to be made in America, especially for the military and stuff like that, I'm hoping our country will wake up and realize other critical assets like medicines and other things that are responsible for life sustainment need to be brought back into the shores and need to be done here, because we cannot be held hostage. Because if China wanted to cut all that off like they threatened a week ago, they really could do that. Not that they wouldn't start a war over it, or we wouldn't start one over it, but they have us by the short hair. So hopefully that comes out of this, and that we take back some of that stuff.
Like there was still, smoke in a Pennsylvania field when legislation was being written about locks on pilot, in the cockpit of a plane.
That's true.
It literally took 24 hours before people are like, okay, here's something we can change right now. No one should have access to the cockpit, period. Like that, this is something we can do right now. And 9/11 was a very real reminder. We weren't talking Afghanistan, but we were talking locks on cockpit doors. And I think one of the points that you bring up is something we can change right now is, and again, it's going to be really awkward because a lot of these people running for president on the Democratic side have written these laws so that our antibiotics are made in India and China. That was part of all of these spending bills, is to make sure that the jobs that we have are the jobs of the future. And if there's automation ahead, we don't want unions to take those jobs, because automation means that we're going to have to eliminate those union jobs. So those jobs got trucked off because we were going to be a nation of website developers. And that was the future. There was no more industry. There was no more jobs working with your hands. It was all the future. And that's when everything got sucked up. And then we had these ridiculous trade deals with China. All of that's changed. And now a virus that, it appears to be a global pandemic, where it's going, affecting our national security. You realize everywhere the Navy goes now, they have to go out to sea and anchor for 15 days.
Right.
They just added 2 weeks to every stop they have to go to, whatever mission they're on. So, it's not just affecting our economy, our way of life, our culture. It's affecting the way we can defend ourselves.
No, it's you hit on a good point there, and you hit on the point of that it is we need to bring this stuff back in, and we need to look at that stuff, and it is changing the way. Will they react as fast as they did in 2001? The question is, I'm not sure, because I think we are a hell of a lot more partisan now than we were in 2001. Even though we still had the same two parties, but I felt when I look back at that time, and hopefully not in a jaded view, I didn't feel like we were as split and partisan, because God forbid anything at one. What's the headline today? That Ilhan Omar yesterday it was Newsom and it was Cuomo agreed with the president, and that was the major news. Well, like, holy crap, they agreed. Like, that should not be major news. You're
going to go back in time and look at this moment in American politics as one of the most incredible opportunities, and the exploitation of what Trump is doing right now is going to go down in history as one of the most incredible moves ever done by an elected president. He has made a lot of conservatives extremely uncomfortable. He sounds like Andrew Yang. Again, universal basic income, that's what Jared Kushner has been trying to talk the president into doing since he was elected. That's not just a crazy liberal idea. That's Silicon Valley idea. That's an Amazon, Google, the future is dark, submit to robots idea. And this is something that the president has surrounded himself with from the very beginning. These tech guys, these multi-billionaires that get together and think about what's the future of American, gross domestic product. And so now he's taken that debate right away from the Democrats. What can they say? Newsom and Cuomo, they're going to write off their budget with this money. They literally can have everything they want because of this disaster. And by the way, where's $1 trillion coming from?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, right.
You want to talk about, that's not chump change. You're talking about giving everyone what, and it goes right back to the bailout. It makes you think about Obama and Bush.
Right.
And it makes you think, why did we give Wall Street that money?
Right.
If we would have paid off everyone's mortgage in the United States, we would have been better off. This is an absolutely brilliant stroke. And if it saves the economy, even better. But honestly, this is a 2020 move, and it puts Biden in the worst position possible as being the crowned candidate, because now you're seeing the president tested in real time. And by the way, that president took 2,400 points of entry and made them into 13 in 72 hours. That's pretty damn impressive. You got a lot of military guys that are working their tails off, and they're doing it for American Airlines and United, and clearing up lanes and making sure that if people are sick on a plane, they can go to a hospital. This is some incredible logistics, and America's not missing a beat.
No, and that's something that I think people are not identifying. Because this is touching everybody directly. Everyone's starting to feel the impact, and this is like honestly, that's why I brought it up in comparison to 9/11 earlier. People are actually feeling this impact. This isn't some abstract idea or notion that we're watching unfold on television, but it has a minimal impact on our lives. Like, no, this is having real impact on people's lives. People have lost wealth. People are losing their jobs. People are being, like forced to like be parents to their kids. Which is blowing my mind. Like I'm excited for the opportunity. I can't wait. Like the fact that but I guess anyway, what I'm trying to say is this is directly impacting people in such a way that they cannot help but identify that it's real. Like this is not some fantasy land. This is not, and that's why we're kind of seeing some of like these weird behaviors, that the toilet paper crap, some of this other stuff. But one of the things that I kind of want to circle back on is we were talking about Ebola. And the reason I want to circle back on is because when the media get a hold of something and they get a hold of it in such a way, like, ooh, this is bad. They put such a focus on containing Ebola and everything about Ebola that they overlooked at the same time in Africa the measles outbreak that was going on. And because of the distraction and the focus on Ebola, we were not giving the vaccine to measles, which we've had for, dare I say, a century. And, like more people died in Africa from measles during that time than ever died from Ebola. But that's because, we put this focus on it. And like, and when I say we, I'm saying America, because America really dictates the global media. And, we have these two bastions of it. We got like the West Coast side, the LA side, and the New York side. And, and they're really driven by, who we were just talking about, the former mayor of San Francisco, the most successful shithole in the nation, Gavin Newsom. And, and then New York City, no offense to, I know I'm outnumbered 2-1, and when it comes to New York tonight, but
dude, I'll be the first one to line up and talk about Adolf Cuomo. Trust me,
when I look at like the bail reform and all that shit, I'm like, man, you guys are just. So now that people are everywhere in America, not just these like remote locations, are being touched by it, it's different, and it has a different feel, and people are reacting different, and we're seeing different behaviors. But like we have to be, like responsible. We have to be compassionate. We have to be understanding, and like I'm excited. I know that sounds weird. One, I'm excited because I get to spend extra time with my kids, and two, I'm excited because I know the best of what is in people is going to come out in the next month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months. And we're, as a nation, going to be better for it. I'm looking at one of the chat rooms, and, I got Scott Stout, great veteran, good buddy of mine, talking about like bringing the pharmaceutical back. Like we were talking, a few minutes, because they do have us by the short hairs. Like some great stuff is going to come out. Some great stuff for the environment is going to come out. Some great stuff for the industry, pharmaceutical industry is going to come back, because now we are going to, like, as a nation. And the funny thing is, all of a sudden, and I'm not saying this to be partisan, I'm saying all of a sudden, a lot of the shit talking that's been going on about the current president is going to kind of like.
Well, it has been. But let me just mention this real quick.
Because he's been saying this all along. We need to stymie this. We need to stop this. We need to bring this back. We need to do this. So it's like,
I want to ask Dave something, but before I do, I want to hit on one thing. I think we're already seeing the great things that are coming. We all know, right? From 9/11, from any bad event, we see the good come out of people as much as we see the bad. But I think we're seeing stores now that are opening up the hour early, or their first hour they're reserving only for elderly and people that are in bad health, people that are the most susceptible to this. This has already started. I don't think this is just a New York thing. I think it's across the country. The first hour is only for those people, so they can, after these stores are closing early, spending all night cleaning, those people get to come into hopefully a fully clean, sterile environment, buy what they need to, and get out for the rest of the ash and trash of America come in. To me, that says a lot that the stores in the retail industry, I don't think they're being mandated to do this. They're just doing it because it's the right thing to do. But I want to go back real quick to something you said, Dave, real quick. You mentioned about, what the president is doing and the giving out the money and all that kind of stuff. But now we're having jails, counties and state jails releasing people, or trying to push to release people. They actually are across the country because they're afraid that it's going to run rampant and the pandemics are going to run rampant in the jails. And they want to release people out, like that are still 2 years out from being released and stuff. I want to get your take on that, because that seems like that is from the pure left playbook of getting people out of jail. On you, Dave. What do you think?
I mean, well, first of all, who could possibly see anything going wrong with that scenario? Letting people out of prison 2 years early. I mean, you got me there. I'm looking for the bad ideas here. What? I mean, it's absurd. The whole thing is nonsense. But listen, I mean, here's the reality, right? If you look at every single person, all the good that's coming out, doing things for older people, and again, if the numbers hold up and you have a 3.5% mortality rate, and you just take the amount of people exposed by flu on an average year in America, that's still 1.5 million people that will lose their life to this thing. And whether or not those people lost their life today or 6 months from now, they're still away from families that love them, and they're still important. They're still a part of who we are. And so, the argument of, well, these are, immune deficient people. These are people that probably are at the end of their life anyway. Well, okay, great. Well, we have a way that we can save them for an extra 6 months.
Right.
Let's do that. If our civic responsibility is to literally, follow the instructions of our kindergarten teacher, it's a little different than, asking for all your rubber and metal and sugar for 3 years. It's a little bit different than, asking you to feed your family by what you can grow in your front yard. I think when we look back at the things that America was asked to do during calamity, going back to the mall, staying at home, washing your hands. I mean, I think this generation's up to the challenge.
Yeah.
Truth.
Yeah. And I wonder too what it's going to do. I think a big piece that still isn't fully can be comprehended yet is the education system. I mean, we're looking at the tail end of of a school year right now. Me as a father of a senior, right? There's a lot of stuff, as you guys know, that happened in the last year of high school. There's college applications, there's tuition, there's scholarship applications, there's proms, there's this, there's that. I mean, all these things. I mean, granted, some schools are more adept; they're already technically advanced to do remote learning and stuff. But I think we're about to see a whole bunch of parents that are either going to think, "Hey, homeschooling is the way to go," or I'm glad paying taxes because I got to get these kids back into school as soon as I can. But we look at the sporting events have been canceled, but I mean, how are grades going to be adjusted, and how are colleges going to eval for next year? Who are they going to accept and not accept, and all that kind of stuff? I mean, the effects of this are far beyond what we're seeing right now, which is only go shopping when you need to and try not to be in groups bigger than 10.
So before anyone answers, I'm laughing my ass off, mainly because in one of the chat rooms, Leroy Petrie is chiming in, and he's like, being Leroy, and he's, talking about how he only has one hand to wash. So I apologize for laughing.
That's Leroy being Leroy for sure.
Yeah.
But
you look at, but you look at, I was talking to Leroy about this, a couple of weeks back. I mean, the things that you told your kids about growing up and the things that you've had to tell this generation of kids about, it really is, you could not compare the amount of maturity that has been forced on this generation through news events than any other generation in the modern era. You got to go back to the Civil War to explain, where all the men are. But you've got school shootings. You've got people that remind them every day that the world is going to end in 7 years because of the, plastic bags. You got folks that are just constantly concocting them with stories that America's a savage nation that just rapes and pillages and you belong part of the evil empire. Oh, and then there's a virus that can kill us all. We'll see you next fall. I mean, we had the Space Shuttle Challenger and we were in post-traumatic stress meetings.
Yeah.
Valuable point.
Right. No, I mean, it's this generation. I mean, someone put up something today I saw. The generation, like my son, who's great, they came in this world with the days after 9/11, and they came into and they're graduating school with a global pandemic happening. That generation may be numb to it, like you said. They may, to them that's normal, right? We look at this, and generations prior look at this and think, oh my goodness. But man, this is a generation that has seen our country in war the entire 18 years. This is a country that's seen all that stuff happen. Like I said, hear everything from "you're a terrible country," "you're not a light on a beacon on the hill." Yeah, you just you do all these things, and all this other stuff happens. But for them, I wonder if I could put myself, and I should probably ask my son, do they even see it all that bad, or they're just kind of like, this is status quo? It's kind of the way things go. It's kind of been a negative Nancy for 18 years. Right, with all the stuff, but they don't know any different.
What what that adds up to, though, is a really unflappable generation. And when you start to discipline those kids and put them in the military, there's a whole lot that they're not going to back down from. I mean, they're going to face every single thing that's in front of them, and they're going to knock it out of the park because they don't spook as easy as the other folks do. I mean, a lot of these stories that you hear about, World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. Those were, people that some of them wanted to be there, some of them didn't want to be there, but they all showed up. They all showed up as a generation and said, hey, country calls, this is what we do. And now you have a group that is able to thin themselves out and say, I actually want to be here. I actually want to do this. Right. I mean, we don't like to talk about this in Army recruiting, but there's a lot of people that join because we're at war.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, don't underestimate the amount of Americans that are just like, I want to get at it.
Right. Well, Call of Duty is a popular game, right? And that desensitizes, and people think that there's a reset button when we know it's not. But Dave, you hit on something good. You have this unique experience in the last year, almost just under the last year, of going across this country, left and right, all over the place, speaking to lots of young people. Since you received that Medal of Honor last June, you've been talking to young and old alike. But I know you just got done talking to a Boy Scout group a few weeks ago. You've talked to people graduating basic and OBC. I mean, you've got a good perspective on this generation that's coming up. Is that where your comments are coming from? Because you're seeing in their faces and you're hearing from them how they look at the world today.
Yeah, no, it's funny because I always tell people, especially the Boy Scouts, the biggest nightmare for like an NCO to have to deal with is a West Point grad Eagle Scout. Like those are the worst LTs to get because they know everything. Like they are literally just a walking almanac of information, and you're like, oh man, I can't break this guy. I'm gonna have to use unconventional measures and take him on a hunt for a fictional character because he's too with it. But you see these kids from all these different walks. The female in the infantry used to be like, what is that woman doing with a blue cord? And then you talk to these young soldiers and these women in particular, and they're just like, I'm an infantryman. Like, I'm doing my job. You tell me what to do and it's going to get done. And it's like, it took almost a generation of, wait, that's weird. What's going on? Like, I thought we were not supposed to do that. How is the Army adjusting to this new world? And they're just putting people that want to be there every single day. I went down to Fort Polk, Louisiana, hung out with the old 2-2 guys at their ball. And those guys there's craziness at Fort Polk. I mean, they are just fired up. They're ready to go. I mean, if you told those guys down at Fort Polk, hey, tomorrow we're shipping out, you're going to be gone for 6 months. It's going to be Baghdad. You're going to war. Those boys are like, please make it a year.
It's Fort Polk, dude. It's Fort
ready.
Polk. Who wouldn't want to get out of Fort Polk? And if you can survive Fort Polk,
I'm telling you. But I'm just saying, this everywhere I go, I see folks that want to be there, that are ready, and are super appreciative of this time in history. you know, at this time to be in the Army. There's just so much more. It's such a better organization than it was when we were there. There's more opportunity. And quite frankly, I think employers are looking at college degrees and saying, no big deal. I've seen a million of these.
Yeah.
What, did you do this one, you know, while you were instructing your spinning class? I mean, it used to be you had a 4-year degree, and this was like, wow, you dedicated so much to get this thing done. And now it's like, oh, you had an extra 2 hours, you know, and you went online and knocked it out. Congratulations.
Hey, I'm glad you brought something up. Have you talked to the girls? Because I believe they're 10th Mountain, right? So there's that squad of girls, or a good group of girls, like 4 or 5 of them that are wearing blue cords that are getting ready to deploy. Have you had the opportunity to talk to them?
They're everywhere. Yeah, no, I go right to them, especially our ROTC graduation. They graduated a bunch of female officer infantry. But yeah, they're everywhere. They're in every unit. You'll see, especially, you know, they're in their dress uniform. You see the blue cords, and you're like, boom. I go right to them. I you know, ask them the tough questions. I make sure, you know, what are we dealing with here? And I'm looking at a young private or a specialist who knows her job, understands her purpose in this world, and is trying to be the best young leader they can be. And it's like, well, all right, where are the ones that just got in because they were chicks? You know, show me those ones. Where are they at? I go to all of them, ask them the same questions, and these are all squared away soldiers. So it's, you know, until I run into a turret, I'll report.
Well, we know the odds are you're going to run into them because we have them everywhere, right? So that's just the way it's going to be. There's so many that are going to. I haven't. Well, to be fair though, I haven't been to Fort Bragg yet, so
to be fair,
not getting too excited.
Right. But yeah, no, it's interesting you say.
I went to this. I got to tell you though, I went to this birthday party of this 103-year-old dude, Maggie Magellis. He's the most decorated 82nd Airborne officer in the history of the 82nd Airborne. He's 103, still alive, World War II vet. And, you know, when you hear about decorated 82nd Airborne officers, you know how many officers in 82nd write their own awards. That's really impressive. Just Iraq alone, you would figure that at least 4 colonels in the 82nd were the most decorated boys in their division. But I'm saying this dude is the real deal. And he liberated a concentration camp 75 years ago with the 82nd. They had this big birthday party for him in Texas. And they brought in a dude who he basically freed 75 years ago. And that guy was from...
I saw this.
Yeah, that guy... Yeah, the guy was from Jamestown, New York.
Really?
Jamestown, New York, right in our backyard. This dude went through 5 concentration camps. He gets finally liberated by the 82nd Airborne. And then at the end, he moves to Jamestown, which some would argue is a 6th concentration camp, but that's neither here nor there. It's not the greatest place in Western New York to live. But I'm just saying, this dude lived right in our backyard, and he was a complete stud. And it was really cool to be able to share real estate with that guy and his story. And but a 103-year-old stud from the 82nd Airborne. It was pretty cool.
You got to hang out with a few cool people down there and make some new friends, didn't you?
Yeah, it was John Ratzenberger who played Maggie Magellis in the movie Bridge Too Far 77 with Sean Connery and Gene Hackman, Robert Redford. That was a good movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so Maggie's the dude who he takes a boat across this crazy river and uses his Thompson as an oar. And they basically are all using their rifles to paddle across this river and, you know, take the fight to the Germans. I mean, it's a pretty iconic story. It's pretty cool. And the other thing is, you know, he had this enormous, like, Pringles can mustache. Like the biggest mustache you've ever seen. Like, just like, why? A mustache that would give him rank in a Middle Eastern army. You know, that's how big the mustache was. Right. He could go into Iraq and become the supreme Allied commander of the Iraqi army based solely on this mustache. It was huge. Never seen anything like it. Well, and it was like all these guys in World War II just grew it out and started to curl it and do crazy things.
They weren't worried about fitting the pro mask, right, for a tight seal. So, you know, they didn't have that. They had that.
That's very true. But I'll tell you, our mustaches were way different than their mustaches. No one brought wax on a deployment.
No. Well, my dad, I had pictures of my dad in Vietnam where he is in, he's SF the whole time, and he has a waxed, curled up, double curled mustache, totally waxed, and with a 45 and a towel, leaving a shower in his camp and somewhere in Laos or Cambodia or Thailand or Vietnam, wherever.
Your dad went to Vietnam and left as Fred Goldman. You know what I mean? Like, how does that? Too soon for the. We'll go with Raleigh fingers. How's that? That'll be.
There we go.
Love it.
Hey,
less OJ, the better.
So you're kind of hunkering down for this time being, and all this is we were kind of talking a little bit before the show. You've been going 1,000 miles an hour. I'm assuming that even though as bad as this whole thing is, this is kind of like a welcome break, even though it probably has some other impacts on your life. But I would imagine.
Yeah, no, I mean, you never want your personal vacation to come on behalf of a global pandemic. As thousands of people are dying in Italy, I'd like to thank everyone for this time off where I could, enjoy some ice cream while people. No, I mean, it's a horrible thing, obviously, but the way the country has reacted to it, and honestly, the way people have complied. I mean, if you would ask the American people to kindly pass your license and registration to police officers and they pull you over, I think we'd have more resistance. It seems that people have been a lot more, just open to compliance with the federal and state officials, and it's kind of cool to see. But the other thing that's really weird about this, especially when you go across the country and you talk to different people, is how all of these arguments that were made like 3 years ago about things that were like bedrock issues, like the Ninth District at the Court of Appeals of the United States said a president cannot, under the Constitution, bar people from entering a country based on their nationality. That's what they said. That's why they blocked his executive order for the quote-unquote Muslim ban. And yet they just allowed the president to say the exact same thing when it came to people in nations affected by coronavirus. So, I mean, you scratch your head and you think, wait a minute, it's the same policy.
Right.
It's the same policy, but it's okay because it's Corona.
And him and the Prime Minister of Canada both just this week decided to block the northern border of the U.S., the southern border of Canada, and both said, nope, we're both good. Shook a hand, or probably didn't shake a hand, did an elbow bump and said, lock it down, except for U.S. citizens that have to come back. Right? No, even Canada. And I say that because Toby, as you know, we've talked before, people always act like, because, someone that's always trying to I'm going to go to Canada if he gets elected. Everyone thinks Canada's easy to get into, and you and I have talked about how it's not. But now even Canada's going, nope, we're locking our stuff down, right?
No, when he did that, I part of me was like, you talked a little shit about our boy, you got caught on camera, misbehaving, running the mouth. You're just like him. Everyone wants to, talk shit and do anti-Trump stuff till it's time to do Trump stuff. It's like everyone wants to be a gangster till it's time to do gangster shit. And a lot of world leaders are, realizing to be a leader, you actually have to understand leadership. And I think we're doing it. I think a lot of people are eating crow.
Will they give him the credit, Dave? You're you know a few people in the administration. Do you think that he will get the credit for some of the stuff that he's been trying to do that is now the world and this country are signing up for, or do you think the one side will continue to just bash him, even though for things that yesterday they said he should have did, and then today they bash him for doing it?
Look, we got little kids at a Connecticut school that were dead 2 hours, and we had folks that were, cutting legislation. I mean, there's not going to be a moment in our media cycle that some politician isn't going to take advantage of. That's just the world we live in. And of course, the media, what the hell is the media supposed to talk about? Antonio Brown? I mean, everyone's talking about coronavirus. Of course, the media is going to hype it up. That's what they do. They hype everything up. That's their job. They talk about things until we can't take it anymore, and we turn the channel. But until you turn the channel, that's what they're going to talk about. So, all the attacks on the Democrats attacking Trump, they don't take a day off. They're not going to take a virus off. Of course they're going to hit him. And if Obama was president, Mitch McConnell would be up there every day. You'd be hearing people talk about the difference between the H1N1 and this flu response. It's completely unfair to, the Obama administration, the CDC at the time, this is not even in the stratosphere of H1N1. Not the global numbers, not the the ability to infect 3 to 1, the lifetime that this stays in droplets and on countertops. I mean, this is HIV level strong, and it's a flu bug that can be transmitted airborne. So, that's not fair to anyone. But yeah, they're going to take their shots. Of course they are. They'd be committing political malpractice if they didn't. Don't waste any opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of politics, real quick to pivot, I saw, and sadly, we lost another Democrat candidate, Tulsi Gabbard. I thought she was going to hang in there for the long haul, but she ended her campaign today, and put her vote behind who? Yeah, Joe Biden. So,
wait. Let's check that source. Check that source.
Yeah, Tulsi, she put her vote behind Joe Biden, dude. She ended it. She announced last night on Shannon Bream's show that she was making an announcement today, and she did go ahead and Google it. Rob will tell you.
I am, bud.
But yeah, it's sad. I was hoping to see that vet take it all the way to the end. I was hoping to see her keep shaking and throwing rocks in the Democratic pond there and making them say and feel uncomfortable. But yeah, she is out. So it's a matter of just it's pretty much going to be crazy Uncle Joe against evil Trump. It should be if this country cares, though, Dave. I'm not sure what you think, but if this thing goes too much longer,
he promised that he's gonna take a female
VP
running mate.
Yeah.
So I have my money on Michelle Obama and Tulsi.
I'd say it's gonna be. I think it's gonna be Klobuchar. She's moderate, or I mean, it could be Pete. It could be Buttigieg.
I'm gonna go with Stacey Abrams in Georgia.
Ooh, that's that. I could see him playing that card. That's to right the wrong, right?
That's a card.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that, but that is.
All right, so you heard. So I think we should start a pool.
Yeah.
Team Toby's Tulsi or Michelle. Team Dave is
Abrams,
Georgia. Abrams. And who do you got, Troy?
I say it's Klobuchar, Amy Klobuchar, the lady who likes to eat salads off a fork. Yeah, because she's moderate like him. He's not going to go Warren because she's too far left. Even though last night he was
and she's scorched earth.
Yeah,
that's the thing is she's scorched earth. So is Kamala,
he won't go there. No,
that's all scorched earth, man.
So there we go. That's it. Hey, Dave, we're up on the hour here. I don't know how much I can go, but I don't want to keep it. We don't want to keep you long. But is there anything that we didn't hit on that you just kind of want to highlight, or any stories that you've experienced? I know we had you on a couple weeks ago for 20 minutes, but anything you just want to let our listeners and viewers know about?
I just want to point out the correlation between the Buffalo Bills being perennial Super Bowl contenders and the end of the world. I think you could find a direct correlation between the fact that doomsday is approaching and the Bills are expected to be the AFC's champions in the preseason.
So if this is still going on when the football season goes, and let's say the football season happens and the Bills make it to the playoffs, do you think this would keep the Mafia from showing up out in Orchard Park? I don't think it would. I think they would. That's the thing though, is when you don't know, this week is a really important week. We're going to find out what our future is. I think probably in the next 2-3 days when we start getting some of these numbers back. Now the kits are more available, but if those numbers are 100,000, I mean, it would be absolutely irresponsible to say, go back to an 80,000 stadium or, go back to the mall or go to the subway. I mean, that's just way too real, and it's going to infect people and hurt people. Yeah, well, it's not stopping the spring breakers, is it? Those young folks, they know what's best for them. Nothing can hurt them. So we'll see. But you talked about a lot of good folks in this new generation who you've seen personally, who have great morals and characters and a spirit. But like we said, there's always a percentage that kind of let you down, that didn't stand in the right line for smarts, and I think we just saw a lot of them in the last few days on South Padre and Daytona. But with that, all right, Toby, what you got, bud?
No, I was just I was just down in on the coast in Texas, and I didn't see that many people on the beach. In fact, it was quite deserted, and I know the economic impact that it's having on the region because, this is, spring break time. This is when families go. This is when college kids go. And, this is a big part of them. And they're still trying to recover from Hurricane Harvey. And they're taking a big hit right now. So, like, the kids on the beaches aren't all down here. I would say, like, I know that in Destin, there's some big areas in Florida as well as, like a couple other places. But, there's still common sense is prevailing, and, I told somebody this yesterday. It's sad that, high level irrationality is, what it takes to get a moderate level of common sense. So that's all I got. That's all I got for the day.
All right, Dave, any final parting words before we play ourselves out? Nope, you're on mute. All right, cool. If you're even still here, my friend. All right, well, I'm going to let you guys go. Toby, good seeing you. Thank you so much to David Bellavia, our guest, good friend, and like I say, third leg on this show, because he has been probably the most frequent guest and most frequent co-host well before he ever stood on that stage in the White House last June. So longtime friend of the show. It's great having him back on. Usually we have a lot more laughter and things to joke about, but obviously tonight we're talking a lot more serious topics and pontificating about a number of issues here. But want to thank everyone for tuning in, bring us into your homes, bring us into your on your screens and everything else. Please continue to stay safe, be smart, be civil, and look after each other like we talked about in this show. Look after your neighbors, the elderly, the people may be shut-ins. Maybe don't walk up and be right in their door, but leave a note or something. Ask them if there's something they need or something like that. Let's all be those instruments to show what America's all about. When we say we see the goods of people come out, it can definitely start with every single one of us. So thank you all so much. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you guys next Thursday here on Stu and the Nunn. So that's March 26th next week. God willing, the creeks don't rise. We will be here. Thank you, everyone, and good night. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Stu and the Nunn Radio. We hope you enjoyed your time with us, because we have enjoyed sharing our time with you. Be sure to check out stewandthenunn.com in addition to asking us questions and interacting with us on our Facebook page and Twitter. We look forward to seeing you next Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern here on Spreaker and Facebook Live. Also, we'd like to thank our sponsors, Warrior Media Solutions, BlueHammer.com, Veteran Outdoors, Graybeard Publishing, and Mighty Oaks Warrior Foundation. Don't forget to like our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter. Thank you again, and have a good night.